The United States Air Force is the aerial warfare service branch of the United States Armed Forces and one of the 7 American uniformed services. Initially part of the United States Army, the USAF was formed as a separate branch of the military on September 18, 1947 under the National Security Act of 1947. It is the most recent branch of the U.S. military to be formed, and is the largest and one of the world's most technologically advanced air forces. The USAF articulates its core functions as Nuclear Deterrence Operations, Special Operations, Air Superiority, Global Integrated ISR, Space Superiority, Command and Control, Cyberspace Superiority, Personal Recovery, Global Precision Attack, Building Partnerships, Rapid Global Mobility and Agile Combat Support. The U.S. Air Force is a military service within the Department of the Air Force, one of the 3 military departments of the Department of Defense. The USAF is headed by the Civilian Secretary of the Air Force, who is appointed by the President with the advice and consent of the Senate. The highest-ranking military officer in the Department of the Air Force is the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, who exercises supervision over Air Force units, and serves as a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Air Force combat forces are assigned, as directed by the Secretary of Defense, to the Combatant Commanders, and neither the Secretary of the Air Force nor the Chief of Staff have operational command authority over them. The U.S. Air Force provides air support to ground troops and aids in the recovery of troops in the field. As of 2012, the service operates more than 5,638 aircraft, 450 ICBMs and 63 satellites. It has a $140 billion budget with 332,854 active personnel, 185,522 civilian personnel, 71,400 reserve personnel, and 106,700 Air Guard personnel. Mission, Vision, and Functions. Mission, according to the National Security Act of 1947, which created the USAF. In general, the United States Air Force shall include aviation forces, both combat and service not otherwise assigned. It shall be organized, trained, and equipped primarily for prompt and sustained offensive and defensive air operations. The Air Force shall be responsible for the preparation of the air forces necessary for the effective prosecution of war except as otherwise assigned and, in accordance with integrated joint mobilization plans, for the expansion of the peacetime components of the Air Force to meet the needs of war. Section 8062 of Title 10 U.S. Code defines the purpose of the USAF as, to preserve the peace and security, and provide for the defense, of the United States, the territories, commonwealths, and possessions, and any areas occupied by the United States. To support national policy. To implement national objectives. To overcome any nations responsible for aggressive acts that imperil the peace and security of the United States. The stated mission of the USAF today is to fly, fight, and win in air, space, and cyberspace. Vision. The United States Air Force will be a trusted and reliable joint partner with our sister services known for integrity in all of our activities, including supporting the joint mission first and foremost. We will provide compelling air, space, and cyber capabilities for use by the combatant commanders. We will excel as stewards of all Air Force resources in service to the American people, while providing precise and reliable global vigilance, reach and power for the nation. Core functions. Recently the Air Force refined its understanding of the core duties and responsibilities it performs as a military service branch, streamlining what previously were 6 distinctive capabilities and 17 operational functions into 12 core functions to be used across the doctrine, organization, training, equipment, leadership, and education, personnel, and facilities spectrum. These core functions express the ways in which the Air Force is particularly and appropriately suited to contribute to national security, but they do not necessarily express every aspect of what the Air Force contributes to the nation. It should be emphasized that the core functions, by themselves, are not doctrinal constructs. Nuclear Deterrence Operations. The purpose of nuclear deterrence operations is to operate, maintain, and secure nuclear forces to achieve an assured capability to deter an adversary from taking action against vital U.S. interests. In the event deterrence fails, the U.S. should be able to appropriately respond with nuclear options. The sub-elements of this function are: assure deter as a mission set derived from the Air Force's readiness to carry out the nuclear strike operations mission, as well as from specific actions taken to assure allies as a part of extended deterrence. Dissuading others from acquiring or proliferating WMD, and the means to deliver them, contributes to promoting security and is also an integral part of this mission. Moreover, different deterrence strategies are required to deter various adversaries, whether they are a nation-state, or non-state transnational actor. The Air Force maintains and presents credible deterrent capabilities through successful visible demonstrations and exercises which assure allies, dissuade proliferation, deter potential adversaries from actions that threaten U.S. national security or the populations and deployed military forces of the U.S., its allies and friends. Nuclear strike is the ability of nuclear forces to rapidly and accurately strike targets which the enemy holds dear in a devastating manner. If a crisis occurs, rapid generation and, if necessary, deployment of nuclear strike capabilities will demonstrate U.S. resolve and may prompt an adversary to alter the course of action deemed threatening to our national interest. Should deterrence fail, the President may authorize a precise, tailored response to terminate the conflict at the lowest possible level and lead to a rapid cessation of hostilities. Post-conflict, regeneration of a credible nuclear deterrent capability will deter further aggression. The Air Force may present a credible force posture in either the continental U.S., within a theater of operations, or both to effectively deter the range of potential adversaries envisioned in the 21st century. This requires the ability to engage targets globally using a variety of methods. Therefore, the Air Force should possess the ability to induct, train, assign, educate and exercise individuals and units to rapidly and effectively execute missions that support U.S. NDO objectives. Finally, the Air Force regularly exercises and evaluates all aspects of nuclear operations to ensure high levels of performance. Nuclear surety ensures the safety, security and effectiveness of nuclear operations. Because of their political and military importance, destructive power, and the potential consequences of an accident or unauthorized act, nuclear weapons and nuclear weapon systems require special consideration and protection against risks and threats inherent in their peacetime and wartime environments. The Air Force, in conjunction with other entities within the Departments of Defense or Energy, achieves a high standard of protection through a stringent nuclear surety program. This program applies to materiel, personnel, and procedures that contribute to the safety, security, and control of nuclear weapons, thus assuring no nuclear accidents, incidents, loss, or unauthorized or accidental use. The Air Force continues to pursue safe, secure and effective nuclear weapons consistent with operational requirements. Adversaries, allies, and the American people must be highly confident of the Air Force's ability to secure nuclear weapons from accidents, theft, loss, and accidental or unauthorized use. This day-to-day commitment to precise and reliable nuclear operations is the cornerstone of the credibility of the NDO mission. Positive nuclear command, control, communications, effective nuclear weapons security, and robust combat support are essential to the overall NDO function. Air superiority. Air superiority is the degree of dominance in the air battle of one force over another which permits the conduct of operations by the former and its related land, sea, air, and special operations forces at a given time and place without prohibitive interference by the opposing force. Offensive counter-air is defined as offensive operations to destroy, disrupt, or neutralize enemy aircraft, missiles, launch platforms, and their supporting structures and systems both before and after launch, but as close to their source as possible. OCA is the preferred method of countering air and missile threats, since it attempts to defeat the enemy closer to its source and typically enjoys the initiative. OCA comprises attack operations, sweep, escort, and suppression destruction of enemy air defense. Defensive counter-air is defined as all the defensive measures designed to detect, identify, intercept, and destroy or negate enemy forces attempting to penetrate or attack through friendly airspace. A major goal of DCA operations, in concert with OCA operations, is to provide an area from which forces can operate, secure from air and missile threats. The DCA mission comprises both active and passive defense measures. Active defense is the employment of limited offensive action and counterattacks to deny a contested area or position to the enemy. It includes both ballistic missile defense and air-breathing threat defense, and encompasses point defense, area defense, and high-value airborne asset defense. Passive defense is measures taken to reduce the probability of and to minimize the effects of damage caused by hostile action without the intention of taking the initiative. It includes detection and warning, chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear defense, camouflage, concealment, and deception, hardening, reconstitution, dispersion, redundancy, and mobility, countermeasures, and stealth. Airspace control is a process used to increase operational effectiveness by promoting the safe, efficient, and flexible use of airspace. It promotes the safe, efficient, and flexible use of airspace, mitigates the risk of fratricide, enhances both offensive and defensive operations, and permits greater agility of air operations as a whole. It both deconflicts and facilitates integration of joint air operations. Space superiority. Space superiority is the degree of dominance in space of one force over another that permits the conduct of operations by the former and its related land, sea, air, space, and special operations forces at a given time and place without prohibitive interference by the opposing force. Space superiority may be localized in time and space, or it may be broad and enduring. Space superiority provides freedom of action in space for friendly forces and, when directed, denies the same freedom to the adversary. Space Force enhancement is defined as the combat support operations and force-multiplying capabilities delivered from space systems to improve the effectiveness of military forces as well as support other intelligence, civil, and commercial users. This mission area includes intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, integrated tactical warning and attack assessment, command, control, and communications, positioning, navigation, and timing, and environmental monitoring. Space Force application is defined as combat operations in, through, and from space to influence the course and outcome of conflict. This mission area includes ballistic missile defense and force projection. Space control is defined as operations to ensure freedom of action in space for the U.S. and its allies and, when directed, deny an adversary freedom of action in space. This mission area includes operations conducted to protect friendly space capabilities from attack, interference, or unintentional hazards. Operations to deny an adversary's use of space capabilities. And the requisite current and predictive knowledge of the space environment and the operational environment upon which space operations depend. Space support is defined as operations to deploy and sustain military and intelligence systems in space. This mission area includes launching and deploying space vehicles, maintaining and sustaining spacecraft on orbit, rendezvous and proximity operations, disposing of space capabilities, and reconstitution of space forces, if required. Cyberspace superiority. Cyberspace superiority is the operational advantage in, through, and from cyberspace to conduct operations at a given time and in a given domain without prohibitive interference. Cyberspace force application is combat operations in, through, and from cyberspace to achieve military objectives and influence the course and outcome of conflict by taking decisive actions against approved targets. It will incorporate computer network attack, computer network exploitation, and may involve aspects of influence operations. It is highly dependent on ISR, fused all-source intelligence, sophisticated attribution activities, situational awareness, and responsive C2. This is the passive, active, and dynamic employment of capabilities to respond to imminent or ongoing actions against Air Force or Air Force-protected networks, the Air Force's portion of the Global Information Grid, or expeditionary communications assigned to the Air Force. Cyberspace defense incorporates CNE, computer network defense, and CNA techniques and may be a contributor to influence operations. It is highly dependent upon ISR, fused all-source intelligence, automated indications and warning, sophisticated attribution characterization, situational awareness, assessment, and responsive C2. Cyberspace support is foundational, continuous, or responsive operations ensuring information integrity and availability in, through, and from Air Force-controlled infrastructure and its interconnected analog and digital portion of the battle space. Inherent in this mission is the ability to establish, extend, secure, protect, and defend in order to sustain assigned networks and missions. This includes protection measures against supply chain components plus critical C2 networks, communications links and nuclear C2 networks. The cyberspace support mission incorporates CNE and CND techniques. It incorporates all elements of Air Force network operations, information transport, enterprise management, and information assurance, and is dependent on ISR and all-source intelligence. Command and control. Command and control is the exercise of authority and direction by a properly designated commander over assigned and attached forces in the accomplishment of the mission. Command and control functions are performed through an arrangement of personnel, equipment, communications, facilities, and procedures employed by a commander in planning, directing, coordinating, and controlling forces and operations in the accomplishment of the mission. This core function includes all of the C2-related capabilities and activities associated with air, space, cyberspace, nuclear, and agile combat support operations to achieve strategic, operational, and tactical objectives. At the strategic level, command and control, the U.S. determines national or multinational security objectives and guidance, and develops and uses national resources to accomplish these objectives. These national objectives in turn provide the direction for developing overall military objectives, which are used to develop the objectives and strategy for each theater. At the operational level, command and control, campaigns and major operations are planned, conducted, sustained, and assessed to accomplish strategic goals within theaters or areas of operations. These activities imply a broader dimension of time or space than do tactics. They provide the means by which tactical successes are exploited to achieve strategic and operational objectives. Tactical level command and control is where individual battles and engagements are fought. The tactical level of war deals with how forces are employed, and the specifics of how engagements are conducted and targets attacked. The goal of tactical level C2 is to achieve commander's intent and desired effects by gaining and keeping offensive initiative. Global Integrated ISR, Global Integrated Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance is the synchronization and integration of the planning and operation of sensors, assets, and processing, exploitation, dissemination systems across the globe to conduct current and future operations. Planning and directing is the determination of intelligence requirements, development of appropriate intelligence architecture, preparation of a collection plan, and issuance of orders and requests to information collection agencies. These activities enable the synchronization and integration of collection, processing, exploitation, analysis, and dissemination activities resources to meet information requirements of national and military decision-makers. Collection is the acquisition of information and the provision of this information to processing elements. It provides the ability to obtain required information to satisfy intelligence needs. Collection activities span the range of military operations. Processing and exploitation is the conversion of collected information into forms suitable to the production of intelligence. It provides the ability, across the ROMO, to transform, extract, and make available collected information suitable for further analysis or action. Analysis and production is the conversion of processed information into intelligence through the integration, evaluation, analysis, and interpretation of all source data and the preparation of intelligence products in support of known or anticipated user requirements. It provides the ability to integrate, evaluate, and interpret information from available sources to create a finished intelligence product for presentation or dissemination to enable increased situational awareness. Dissemination and integration is the delivery of intelligence to users in a suitable form and the application of the intelligence to appropriate missions, tasks, and functions. It provides the ability to present information and intelligence products across the ROMO, enabling understanding of the operational environment to military and national decision-makers. Global precision attack. Global precision attack is the ability to hold at risk or strike rapidly and persistently, with a wide range of munitions, any target, and to create swift, decisive, and precise effects across multiple domains. Strategic attack is defined as offensive action specifically selected to achieve national strategic objectives. These attacks seek to weaken the adversary's ability or will to engage in conflict, and may achieve strategic objectives without necessarily having to achieve operational objectives as a precondition. Air interdiction is defined as air operations conducted to divert, disrupt, delay, or destroy the enemy's military potential before it can be brought to bear effectively against friendly forces, or to otherwise achieve JFC objectives. Air interdiction is conducted at such distance from friendly forces that detailed integration of each air mission with the fire and movement of friendly forces is not required. Close air support is defined as air action by fixed and rotary-winged aircraft against hostile targets that are in close proximity to friendly forces and which require detailed integration of each air mission with the fire and movement of those forces. This can be as a pre-planned event or on demand from an alert posture. It can be conducted across the ROMO. Today the USAF believes that it accomplishes the CAS mission better than anyone actually does. Special operations. Special operations are operations conducted in hostile, denied, or politically sensitive environments to achieve military, diplomatic, informational, and/or economic objectives employing military capabilities for which there is no broad conventional force requirement. These operations may require cover, clandestine, or low-visibility capabilities. Special operations are applicable across the ROMO. They can be conducted independently or in conjunction with operations of conventional forces or other government agencies and may include operations through, with, or by indigenous or surrogate forces. Special operations differ from conventional operations in degree of physical and political risk, operational techniques, mode of employment, independence from friendly support, and dependence on detailed operational intelligence and indigenous assets. Agile combat support is the capability to effectively create, prepare, deploy, employ, sustain, and protect Air Force Special Operations Command airmen, assets, and capabilities throughout the ROMO at a chosen initiative, speed, and tempo. Aviation Foreign Internal Defense Operations directly execute U.S. security and foreign policy as lead air power elements that shape the battlefield and conduct stability operations to enable global reach and strike. This is accomplished by applying the mission set across a continuum of operating venues described as indirect assistance, direct assistance and combat operations. Battlefield air operations is a unique set of combat-proven capabilities provided by regular and reserve component special operations forces battlefield airmen who integrate, synchronize, and control manned and unmanned capabilities to achieve tactical, operational, and strategic objectives. Command and control is the exercise of the commander's authority and direction over assigned and attached forces by trained, organized, and equipped C2 elements. Operational C2 elements consist of personnel and equipment with specialized capability to plan, direct, coordinate, and control forces in the conduct of joint combined special operations. Information operations is the integrated employment of the capabilities of influence operations, electronic warfare operations, and network warfare operations, in concert with specified integrated control enablers, to influence, disrupt, corrupt, or usurp adversarial human and automated decision-making while protecting one's own. Intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance is the synchronization and integration of platforms and sensors with the planning and direction, collection, processing and exploitation, analysis, and production and dissemination processes. These activities provide actionable intelligence, weather, environmental awareness, and prediction across all SOF command echelons. Military information support operations are planned operations to convey selected information and indicators to foreign audiences to influence their emotions, motives, objective reasoning, and ultimately the behavior of foreign governments, organizations, groups, and individuals. The purpose of military information support operations is to induce or reinforce foreign attitudes and behavior favorable to the originator's objectives. Precision strike provides CCDRs with an integrated capability to find, fix, track, target, engage, and assess targets using a single weapon system or a combination of systems. This includes close air support, air interdiction, and armed reconnaissance missions. Specialized air mobility is the conduct of rapid, global infiltration, exfiltration, and resupply of personnel, equipment, and materiel using specialized systems and tactics. These missions may be clandestine, low visibility, or overt and through hostile, denied, or politically sensitive airspace. Specialized refueling is the conduct of rapid, global refueling using specialized systems and tactics. This includes aerial refueling of vertical lift aircraft and ground refueling during forward arming and refueling point operations. These missions may be clandestine, low visibility, or overt and in hostile, denied, or politically sensitive environments. Rapid global mobility. Rapid global mobility is the timely deployment, employment, sustainment, augmentation, and redeployment of military forces and capabilities across the ROMO. It provides joint military forces the capability to move from place to place while retaining the ability to fulfill their primary mission. Rapid global mobility is essential to virtually every military operation, allowing forces to reach foreign or domestic destinations quickly, thus seizing the initiative through speed and surprise. Airlift is operations to transport and deliver forces and materiel through the air in support of strategic, operational, or tactical objectives. The rapid and flexible options afforded by airlift allow military forces and national leaders the ability to respond and operate in a variety of situations and time frames. The global reach capability of airlift provides the ability to apply U.S. power worldwide by delivering forces to crisis locations. It serves as a U.S. presence that demonstrates resolve and compassion in humanitarian crisis. Air refueling is the refueling of an aircraft in flight by another aircraft. Air refueling extends presence, increases range, and serves as a force multiplier. It allows air assets to more rapidly reach any trouble spot around the world with less dependence on forward staging bases or overflight landing clearances. Air refueling significantly expands the options available to a commander by increasing the range, payload, persistence, and flexibility of receiver aircraft. Aeromedical evacuation is the movement of patients under medical supervision to and between medical treatment facilities by air transportation. JP4-02, Health Service Support, further defines it as the fixed-wing movement of regulated casualties to and between medical treatment facilities, using organic and/or contracted mobility airframes, with air crew trained explicitly for this mission. Aeromedical evacuation forces can operate as far forward as fixed-wing aircraft are able to conduct air-land operations. Personal recovery is defined as the sum of military, diplomatic, and civil efforts to prepare for and execute the recovery and reintegration of isolated personnel. It is the ability of the U.S. government and its international partners to effect the recovery of isolated personnel across the ROMO and return those personnel to duty. PR also enhances the development of an effective, global capacity to protect and recover isolated personnel wherever they are placed at risk. Deny an adversary US's ability to exploit a nation through propaganda. And develop joint, interagency, and international capabilities that contribute to crisis response and regional stability. Combat search and rescue is the tactics, techniques, and procedures performed by forces to effect the recovery of isolated personnel during combat. Combat search and rescue is the primary Air Force recovery method utilized to conduct PR taskings, Civil search and rescue is the use of aircraft, surface craft, submarines, and specialized rescue teams and equipment to search for and rescue distressed persons on land or at sea in a permissive environment. Disaster response can be described as the capability to support and assist U.S. government agencies and embassies during national and international disasters with rapidly deployable and flexible air-ground rescue forces. Humanitarian assistance operations are programs conducted to relieve or reduce the results of natural or man-made disasters or other endemic conditions such as human pain, disease, hunger, or privation that might present a serious threat to life or that can result in great damage to or loss of property. Humanitarian assistance provided by U.S. forces is limited in scope and duration. The assistance provided is designed to supplement or complement the efforts of the host nation's civil authorities or agencies that may have the primary responsibility for providing humanitarian assistance. Medical evacuation refers to dedicated medical evacuation platforms staffed and equipped to provide en route medical care using pre-designated tactical and logistic aircraft, boats, ships, and other watercraft temporarily equipped and staffed with medical attendants for en route care. Casualty evacuation involves the unregulated movement of casualties aboard ships, land vehicles, or aircraft. Agile combat support. Agile combat support is the ability to field, protect, and sustain Air Force forces across the ROMO to achieve joint effects. Ready. The total force includes organizing, training, and equipping forces, establishing quality of life and maintaining core security, and fielding and planning for the use of operational and support forces to meet global mission requirements. Prepare. The battle space includes assessing, planning, and posturing for rapid employment. Prepositioning resources and conditioning specific theaters and/or contingency locations in a manner to meet closure timing. And establishing sustainment levels for potential operations. Position. The total force includes preparing to deploy, deploying, receiving, and bedding down tailored and prioritized forces. Establishing initial operations and support cadres in a joint operations area. Distributing pre-positioned resources. Establishing initial reach-back connectivity. Securing operating locations. And preparing for mission operations. Protecting the total force. Key focus areas include personnel, critical assets, and information. These areas are the persistent detection and understanding of threats in the operational environment and the timely dissemination of accurate decisions, warnings and taskings to protect against attacks and/or threats. Employ combat support forces includes engaging support forces in support of mission operations. Initializing, launching, recovering, and regenerating operational elements. Executing support through supporting supported relationships. And commencing reach-back operations to strategic levels of support. Sustain. The total force includes producing assured capacities and levels of support. Accomplishing the long-term mastery of an operational environment requiring persistent and effective material and personnel support through both local and reach-back processes. Recover. The total force includes preparing forces to remain in place, redeploy, relocate, and be reconstituted to prescribed levels of readiness. Restoring operating locations and/or environments to planned conditions. Protecting the dynamic levels of force structure. And ensuring Air Force mission elements can be effectively applied at the direction of national leadership. Building partnerships. Building partnerships is described as airmen interacting with international airmen and other relevant actors to develop, guide, and sustain relationships for mutual benefit and security. Building partnerships is about interacting with others and is therefore an inherently interpersonal and cross-cultural undertaking. Through both words and deeds, the majority of interaction is devoted to building trust-based relationships for mutual benefit. It includes both foreign partners as well as domestic partners and emphasizes collaboration with foreign governments, militaries and populations as well as U.S. government departments, agencies, industry, and NGOs. To better facilitate partnering efforts, airmen should be competent in the relevant language, region, and culture. Communicate refers to developing and presenting information to domestic audiences to improve understanding. It is also the ability to develop and present information to foreign adversary audiences to affect their perceptions, will, behavior and capabilities in order to further U.S. national security and/or shared global security interests. Shape refers to conducting activities to affect the perceptions, will, behavior, and capabilities of partners, military forces, and relevant populations to further U.S. national security or shared global security interests. History. The War Department created the first antecedent of the Air Force in 1907, which through a succession of changes of organization, titles, and missions advanced toward eventual separation 40 years later. In World War II, almost 68,000 U.S. airmen died helping to win the war. Only the infantry suffered more enlisted casualties. In practice, the USAF was virtually independent of the Army during World War II, but officials wanted formal independence. The USAF became a separate military service on September 18, 1947, with the implementation of the National Security Act of 1947. The Act created the National Military Establishment, which was composed of three subordinate military departments, namely the Department of the Army, the Department of the Navy, and a newly created Department of the Air Force. Prior to 1947, the responsibility for military aviation was shared between the Army, the Navy, and the Marine Corps. The 1940s proved to be important in other ways as well. In 1947, Captain Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier in his X-1 rocket-powered aircraft, beginning a new era of aeronautics in America. The predecessor organizations in the Army of today's Air Force are, Aeronautical Division, Signal Corps August 1, 1907 July 18, 1914, Aviation Section, Signal Corps July 18, 1914 May 20, 1918, Division of Military Aeronautics, U.S. Army Air Service, U.S. Army Air Corps and U.S. Army Air Forces. Recent history. Since 2005, the USAF has placed a strong focus on the improvement of basic military training. While the intense training has become longer, it also has shifted to include a deployment phase. This deployment phase, now called the Beast, places the trainees in a surreal environment that they may experience once they deploy. While the trainees do tackle the massive obstacle courses along with the Beast, the other portions include defending and protecting their base of operations, forming a structure of leadership, directing search and recovery, and basic self-aid body care. During this event, the military training instructors act as mentors and enemy forces in a deployment exercise. In 2007, the USAF undertook a reduction in force. Because of budget constraints, the USAF planned to reduce the service's size from 360,000 active duty personnel to 316,000. The size of the active duty force in 2007 was roughly 64% of that of the USAF at the end of the Gulf War in 1991. However, the reduction was ended at approximately 330,000 personnel in 2008 to meet mission requirements. These same constraints have seen a sharp reduction in flight hours for crew training since 2005, and the Deputy Chief of Staff for Manpower and Personnel directing airmen's time assessments. On June 5, 2008, Secretary of Defense Robert Gates accepted the resignations of both the Secretary of the Air Force, Michael Wynne, and the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, General T. Michael Mosley. Gates in effect fired both men for systemic issues associated with declining Air Force nuclear mission focus and performance. This followed an investigation into two embarrassing incidents involving mishandling of nuclear weapons, specifically 2007 United States Air Force nuclear weapons incident and an accidental shipment of nuclear weapons components to Taiwan. The resignations were also the culmination of disputes between the Air Force leadership and Gates. To put more emphasis on nuclear assets, the USAF established the Nuclear-Focused Air Force Global Strike Command on October 24, 2008. On June 26, 2009, the USAF released a force structure plan that cuts fighter aircraft and shifts resources to better support nuclear, irregular and information warfare. On July 23, 2009, the USAF released their Unmanned Aerial System Flight Plan, detailing UAV plans through 2047. One-third of the planes that the USAF plans to buy in the future are to be unmanned. During the early 2000s, the USAF fumbled several high-profile aircraft procurement projects, such as the failure to make the case for the next-generation bomber, the failure to control costs on the Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor and the missteps on the KC-X program. Winslow Wheeler has written that this pattern represents failures of intellect and much more importantly ethics. As a result, the USAF fleet is setting new records for average aircraft age and needs to replace its fleets of fighters, bombers, airborne tankers, and airborne warning aircraft, in an age of restrictive defense budgets. Finally, in the midst of scandal and failure in maintaining its nuclear arsenal, the civilian and military leaders of the Air Force were replaced in 2008. In 2011, the Air Force disallowed the wear of Friday name tags per the new dress and appearance standards. This has been a tradition regarding call signs that dates to WWI. The budget sequestration of 2013 is claimed to have austere budget shortfalls in store for the armed forces, including the Air Force. Specific concerns include a compounded inability for the Air Force to replace its aging fleet, and an overall reduction of strength and readiness. The USAF attempted to make these adjustments by cutting Guard and Reserve fleets, but Congress reversed this and the majority of the lost manpower will come from the active forces. However, Congress did allow for $208 million of reprogramming from fleet modernization to enable some portion of the third of the grounded fleet to resume operations. Conflicts. The United States has been involved in many wars, conflicts and operations using military air operations. Air combat operations before, and since the official conception of the USAF include, World War I as Aviation Section, U.S. Signal Corps and United States Army Air Service, World War II as United States Army Air Forces, Cold War, Korean War, Vietnam War, Operation Eagle Claw, Operation Urgent Fury, Operation El Dorado Canyon, Operation Just Cause, Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm, Operation Southern Watch, Operation Deliberate Force, Operation Northern Watch, Operation Desert Fox, Operation Allied Force, Operation Enduring Freedom, Operations Iraqi Freedom and New Dawn, Operation Odyssey Dawn. In addition, since the USAF dwarfs all Allied air forces, it often provides support for Allied forces in conflicts to which the United States is otherwise not involved, for example the 2013 French campaign in Mali. Humanitarian operations. The USAF has also taken part in numerous humanitarian operations. Some of the more major ones include the following: Berlin Airlift, 1948–1949, Operation Safe Haven, 1956–1957, Operations Babylift, New Life, Frequent Wind, and New Arrivals, 1975, Operation Provide Comfort, 1991, Operation Sea Angel, 1991, Operation Provide Hope, 1992–1993, Operation Unified Assistance, December 2004–April 2005, Operation Unified Response, January 14, 2010 present, Operation Tomodachi, March 12, 2011 May 1, 2011. Budget squeeze. Due to the budget sequestration in 2013, the USAF was forced to ground many of its squadrons. Air Combat Commander Hostage has indicated that the USAF must reduce its F-15 and F-16 fleets and eliminate platforms like the A-10 in order to focus on a fifth-generation jet fighter future. Air Force pilots have responded by switching to commercial airlines where they can find flight hours on more modern aircraft. Organization. Administrative organization. The Department of the Air Force is one of 3 military departments within the Department of Defense, and is managed by the Civilian Secretary of the Air Force, under the authority, direction, and control of the Secretary of Defense. The senior officials in the Office of the Secretary are the Under-Secretary of the Air Force, 4 Assistant Secretaries of the Air Force and the General Counsel, all of whom are appointed by the President with the advice and consent of the Senate. The senior uniformed leadership in the Air Staff is made up of the Chief of Staff of the Air Force and the Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force. The directly subordinate commands and units are named Field Operating Agency, Direct Reporting Unit, and the currently unused Separate Operating Agency. The Major Command is the superior hierarchical level of command. Including the Air Force Reserve Command, as of September 30, 2006, USAF has 10 major commands. The numbered Air Force is a level of command directly under the MAJCOM, followed by Operational Command, Air Division, Wing, Group, Squadron, and Flight. Headquarters Air Force, Office of the Secretary of the Air Force, the Pentagon, Arlington County, Virginia. The Air Staff, the Pentagon, Arlington County, Virginia. Major Commands, Air Combat Command, headquartered at Joint Base Langley Eustis, Virginia. 1st Air Force, headquartered at Tyndall Air Force Base, Panama City, Florida. 9th Air Force, headquartered at Shaw Air Force Base, South Carolina. 12th Air Force, headquartered at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, Tucson, Arizona. United States Air Forces Central, headquartered at Shaw Air Force Base, South Carolina. United States Air Force Warfare Center, headquartered at Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada. Air Education and Training Command, headquartered at Joint Base San Antonio, Texas. 2nd Air Force, headquartered at Kessler Air Force Base, Biloxi, Mississippi. 19th Air Force, headquartered at Joint Base San Antonio, Texas. Air Force Recruiting Service, headquartered at Joint Base San Antonio, Texas. The Air University, headquartered at Maxwell Gunter Air Force Base, Montgomery, Alabama. Wilford Hall Medical Center, headquartered at Joint Base San Antonio, Texas. Air Force Global Strike Command, headquartered at Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana. 8th Air Force, headquartered at Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana. 20th Air Force, headquartered at Francis E. Warren Air Force Base, Cheyenne, Wyoming. Air Force Materiel Command, headquartered at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio. Air Force Life Cycle Management Center, headquartered at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio. Air Force Flight Test Center, headquartered at Edwards Air Force Base, Palmdale, California. Air Force Global Logistics Support Center, headquartered at Scott Air Force Base, Belleville, Illinois. Air Force Nuclear Weapons Center, headquartered at Kirtland Air Force Base, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Air Force Research Laboratory, headquartered at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio. Air Force Security Assistance Center, headquartered at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio. Air Armament Center, headquartered at Eglin Air Force Base, Fort Walton Beach, Florida. Arnold Engineering Development Center, located at Arnold Air Force Base, Manchester, Tennessee. Electronic Systems Center, headquartered at Hanscom Air Force Base, Massachusetts. Air Force Reserve Command, headquartered at Robbins Air Force Base, Georgia. 4th Air Force, headquartered at March Air Reserve Base, California. 10th Air Force, headquartered at the Naval Air Station Joint Reserve Base Fort Worth, Texas. 22nd Air Force, headquartered at Dobbins Air Reserve Base, Georgia. Air Reserve Personnel Center, headquartered at Buckley Air Force Base, Colorado. Air Force Space Command, headquartered at Peterson Air Force Base, Colorado Springs, Colorado. 14th Air Force, headquartered at Vandenberg Air Force Base, Lompoc, California. 24th Air Force, headquarters at Joint Base San Antonio, Texas. Space and Missile Systems Center, headquartered at Los Angeles Air Force Base, El Segundo, California. Space Innovation and Development Center, headquartered at Schwer Air Force Base, Colorado. Air Force Network Integration Center, headquartered at Scott Air Force Base, Illinois. Air Force Special Operations Command, headquartered at Hurlburt Field, Florida. Special Operations Training Center, headquartered at Hurlburt Field, Florida. Air Mobility Command, headquartered at Scott Air Force Base, Belleville, Illinois. 18th Air Force, headquartered at Scott Air Force Base, Belleville, Illinois. United States Air Force Expeditionary Center, headquartered at Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst, New Jersey. United States Air Forces in Europe, Air Forces Africa, headquartered at Ramstein Air Base, Germany. 3rd Air Force, headquartered at Ramstein Air Base, Germany. Pacific Air Forces, headquartered at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam, Hawaii. 5th Air Force, headquartered at Yokota Air Base, Japan. 7th Air Force, headquartered at Osan Air Base, South Korea. 11th Air Force, headquartered at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, Anchorage, Alaska. Air National Guard Readiness Center, headquartered at Joint Base Andrews, Maryland. I.G. Brown Air National Guard Training and Education Center, headquartered at McKee-Tyson Air National Guard Base, Knoxville, Tennessee. The major components of the U.S. Air Force, as of September 30, 2006, are the following: active duty forces, 57 flying wings, 8 space wings, and 55 non-flying wings, 9 flying groups, 8 non-flying groups, 134 flying squadrons, 43 space squadrons. Air Force Reserve Command, 35 flying wings, 1 space wing, 4 flying groups, 67 flying squadrons, 6 space squadrons. Air National Guard, 87 flying wings, 101 flying squadrons, 4 space squadrons. The USAF, including its Air Reserve component, possesses a total of 302 flying squadrons. Operational organization. The organizational structure as shown above is responsible for the peacetime organization, equipping, and training of aerospace units for operational missions. When required to support operational missions, the Secretary of Defense directs the Secretary of the Air Force to execute a change in operational control of these units from their administrative alignment to the operational command of a regional combatant commander. In the case of AFSPC, AFSUC, PACAF, and USAFE units, forces are normally employed in place under their existing CCDR. Likewise, AMC forces operating in support roles retain their componency to use Transcom unless chopped to a regional CCDR. Aerospace Expeditionary Task Force, chopped units are referred to as forces. The top-level structure of these forces is the Air and Space Expeditionary Task Force. The AETF is the Air Force presentation of forces to a CCDR for the employment of air power. Each CCDR is supported by a standing component-numbered Air Force to provide planning and execution of aerospace forces in support of CCDR requirements. Each CNAF consists of a commander, Air Force Forces and AFFORA staff, and an Air Operations Center. As needed to support multiple Joint Force commanders in the COCOM's area of responsibility, the CNAF may deploy Air Component Coordinate elements to liaise with a JFC. If the Air Force possesses the preponderance of air forces in a JFC's area of operations, the COMAFOR will also serve as the Joint Forces Air Component Commander. Commander, Air Force Forces. The Commander, Air Force Forces is the senior USAF officer responsible for the employment of air power in support of JFC objectives. The COMAFOR has a special staff and an A staff to ensure assigned or attached forces are properly organized, equipped, and trained to support the operational mission. Air Operations Center. The Air Operations Center is the JFACC's command and control center. Several AOCs have been established throughout the Air Force worldwide. These centers are responsible for planning and executing air power missions in support of JFC objectives. Air Expeditionary Wings Squadrons. The AETF generates air power to support COCOM objectives from Air Expeditionary Wings or Air Expeditionary Groups. These units are responsible for receiving combat forces from Air Force MAJCOMs, preparing these forces for operational missions, launching and recovering these forces, and eventually returning forces to the MAJCOMs. Theater Air Control Systems control employment of forces during these missions. Personnel. The classification of any USAF job is the Air Force Specialty Code. They range from flight combat operations such as a gunner, to working in a dining facility to ensure that members are properly fed. There are many different jobs in fields such as computer specialities, mechanic specialities, enlisted air crew, communication systems, cyberspace operations, avionics technicians, medical specialities, civil engineering, public affairs, hospitality, law, drug counseling, mail operations, security forces, and search and rescue specialties. Perhaps the most dangerous USAF jobs are explosive ordnance disposal, combat rescue officer, pararescue, security forces, combat control, combat weather, tactical air control party, and AFOSI agents, who deploy with infantry and special operations units who disarm bombs, rescue downed or isolated personnel, call in airstrikes and set up landing zones in forward locations. Most of these are enlisted positions. Other jobs have seen increasing combat, including engineers, vehicle operators, and OSI. Nearly all enlisted jobs are entry-level, meaning that the USAF provides all training. Some enlistees are able to choose a particular job, or at least a field before actually joining, while others are assigned an AFSC at basic military training. After BMT, new MN attend a technical training school where they learn their particular AFSC. 2nd Air Force, a part of Air Education and Training Command, is responsible for nearly all technical training. Training programs vary in length. For example, 3MOX-1 has 31 days of tech school training, while 3E8X-1 is 1 year of training with a preliminary school and a main school consisting of over 10 separate divisions, sometimes taking students close to 2 years to complete. USAF rank is divided between enlisted airmen, non-commissioned officers, and commissioned officers, and ranges from the enlisted airman basic to the commissioned rank of general. Enlisted promotions are granted based on a combination of test scores, years of experience, and selection board approval, while officer promotions are based on time and grade and a promotion board. Promotions among enlisted personnel and non-commissioned officers are generally designated by increasing numbers of insignia chevrons. Commissioned officer rank is designated by bars, oak leaves, a silver eagle, and anywhere from 1 to 4 stars. Commissioned officers. The commissioned officer ranks of the USAF are divided into 3 categories: company grade, field grade, and general officers. Company grade officers are those officers in pay grades 01 to 03, while field grade officers are those in pay grades 04 to 06, and general officers are those in pay grades of 07 and above. Air Force officer promotions are governed by the Defense Officer Personnel Management Act of 1980. DOPMA also establishes limits on the number of officers that can serve at any given time in the Air Force. Currently, promotion from second lieutenant to first lieutenant is virtually guaranteed after 2 years of satisfactory service. The promotion from first lieutenant to captain is competitive after successfully completing another 2 years of service, with a selection rate varying between 99% and 100%. Promotion to major through major general is through a board process, while promotions to lieutenant general and general are contingent upon nomination to specific general officer positions and subject to U.S. Senate approval. During the board process, an officer's record is reviewed by a selection board at the Air Force Personnel Center at Randolph Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. At the 8-year mark, captains will take part in a selection board to major. If not selected, they will meet a follow-on board to determine if they will be allowed to remain in the Air Force. Promotion from major to lieutenant colonel is similar and occurs approximately between the 11 and 15-year mark, where a certain percentage of majors will be selected below zone, in zone or above zone for promotion to lieutenant colonel. This process will repeat at the 16-21-year mark for promotion to colonel. The Air Force has the largest ratio of general officers to total strength of all of the U.S. Armed Forces, and this ratio has continued to increase even as the force has shrunk from its Cold War highs. Warrant officers. Although provision is made in Title 10 of the United States Code for the Secretary of the Air Force to appoint warrant officers, the Air Force does not currently use warrant officer grades, and is the only one of the U.S. Armed Services not to do so. The Air Force inherited warrant officer ranks from the Army at its inception in 1947, but their place in the Air Force structure was never made clear. When the Congress authorized the creation of 2 new senior enlisted ranks in 1958, Air Force officials privately concluded that these 2 new supergrades could fill all Air Force needs then performed at the warrant officer level, although this was not publicly acknowledged until years later. The Air Force stopped appointing warrant officers in 1959, the same year the first promotions were made to the new top enlisted grade, Chief Master Sergeant. Most of the existing Air Force warrant officers entered the commissioned officer ranks during the 1960s, but tiny numbers continued to exist for the next 21 years. The last active duty Air Force warrant officer, CW04 James H. Long, retired in 1980, and the last Air Force Reserve warrant officer, CW04 Bob Barrow, retired in 1992. Upon his retirement, he was honorarily promoted to CW05. The only person in the Air Force ever to hold this grade. Barrow died in April 2008. Since Barrow's retirement, the Air Force warrant officer ranks, while still authorized by law, are not used. Enlisted Airmen. Enlisted members of the USAF have pay grades from E1 to E9. While all USAF military personnel are referred to as airmen, the term also refers to the pay grades of E1 through E4, which are below the level of non-commissioned officers. Above the pay grade of E4, all ranks fall into the category of NCO and are further subdivided into NCOs, and senior NCOs. The term junior NCO is sometimes used to refer to staff sergeants and technical sergeants. The USAF is the only branch of the U.S. military where NCO status is achieved when an airman reaches the pay grade of E5. In all other branches, NCO status is generally achieved at the pay grade of E4. The Air Force mirrored the Army from 1976 to 1991, with an E4 being either a senior airman wearing 3 stripes without a star or a sergeant, which was noted by the presence of the central star and considered an NCO. Despite not being an NCO, a senior airman who has completed Airman Leadership School can be a supervisor. Uniforms. The first USAF dress uniform, in 1947, was dubbed and patented Uxbridge Blue after Uxbridge 1683 Blue, developed at the former Bachmann Uxbridge Worsted Company. The current service dress uniform, which was adopted in 1993 and standardized in 1995, consists of a 3-button, pocketless coat, similar to that of a men's sport jacket, matching trousers, and either a service cap or flight cap, all in shade 1620, Air Force Blue. This is worn with a light blue shirt and shade 1620 herringbone patterned necktie. Enlisted members wear sleeve insignia on both the jacket and shirt, while officers wear metal rank insignia pinned onto the coat, and Air Force Blue slide-on epaulette loops on the shirt. USAF personnel assigned to base honor guard duties wear, for certain occasions, a modified version of the standard service dress uniform, but with silver trim on the sleeves and trousers, with the addition of a ceremonial belt, wheel cap with silver trim and Hap Arnold device, and a silver aiguillette placed on the left shoulder seam, and all devices and accoutrement. The Airman Battle Uniform became the sole authorized utility uniform of the USAF on November 1, 2011. The ABU replaced the battle dress uniform previously worn by all U.S. military forces. Awards and badges. In addition to basic uniform clothing, various badges are used by the USAF to indicate a job assignment or qualification level for a given assignment. Badges can also be used as merit-based or service-based awards. Over time, various badges have been discontinued and are no longer distributed. Authorized badges include the Shields of USAF Fire Protection and Security Forces, and the Missile Badge, which is earned after working in a missile system maintenance or operations capacity for at least 1 year. Training. All non-prior service enlisted airmen attend basic military training at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas for 8.5 weeks. The Air Force accepts the basic training programs of other U.S. military branches in lieu of BMT for airmen who enlist having completed prior service in the U.S. Army, Navy, or Marine Corps. Officers may be commissioned upon graduation from the United States Air Force Academy, upon graduation from another college or university through the Air Force Reserve Officer Training Corps program, or through the Air Force Officer Training School. OTS, which is based at Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama, in turn encompasses 2 separate commissioning programs: Basic Officer Training, which is for line officer candidates of the active duty Air Force, and the U.S. Air Force Reserve. and the Academy of Military Science, which is for line officer candidates of the Air National Guard. The Air Force also provides commissioned officer training for officers of all three components who are direct commissioned to non-line positions due to their credentials in medicine, law, religion, biological sciences, or healthcare administration. Originally viewed as a knife and fork school that covered little beyond basic wear of the uniform, COT in recent years has been fully integrated into the OTS program and today encompasses extensive coursework as well as field exercises in leadership, confidence, fitness, and deployed environment operations. Air Force Fitness Test. The U.S. Air Force Fitness Test is designed to test the abdominal circumference, muscular strength, endurance and cardiovascular respiratory fitness of airmen in the USAF. As part of the Fit to Fight program, the USAF adopted a more stringent physical fitness assessment. The new fitness program was put into effect on June 1, 2010. The annual ergo cycle test, which the USAF had used for several years, had been replaced in 2004. In the AFFT, airmen are given a score based on performance consisting of 4 components: waist circumference, the sit-up, the push-up, and a 1.5-mile run. Airmen can potentially earn a score of 100, with the run counting as 60%, waist circumference as 20%, and both strength test counting as 10% each. A passing score is 75 points. Effective July 1, 2010, the AFFT is administered by the Base Fitness Assessment Cell, and is required twice a year. Personnel may test once a year if he or she earns a score above a 90%. Additionally, only meeting the minimum standards on each one of these tests will not get you a passing score of 75%, and failing any one component will result in a failure for the entire test. Aircraft inventory. The U.S. Air Force has over 5,638 aircraft in service as of September 2012. Until 1962, the Army and Air Force maintained one system of aircraft naming, while the U.S. Navy maintained a separate system. In 1962, these were unified into a single system heavily reflecting the Army Air Force method. For more complete information on the workings of this system, refer to United States Department of Defense Aerospace Vehicle Designation. The various aircraft of the Air Force include an A ground attack. The ground attack aircraft of the USAF are designed to attack targets on the ground and are often deployed as close air support for, and in proximity to, U.S. ground forces. The proximity to friendly forces require precision strikes from these aircraft that are not possible with bomber aircraft listed below. They are typically deployed as close air support to ground forces. Their role is tactical rather than strategic, operating at the front of the battle rather than against targets deeper in the enemy's rear. A 10 Angolan Kwanzas 10A Thunderbolt IV USAF operated 345 A-10 and OA-10 aircraft as 2013, AC-138U Spectre Spooky 2. BA Strategic Bombers. In the U.S. Air Force, the distinction between bombers, fighter bombers, and attack aircraft has become blurred. Many attack aircraft, even ones that look like fighters, are optimized to drop bombs, with very little ability to engage in aerial combat. Many fighter aircraft, such as the F-16, are often used as bomb trucks, despite being designed for aerial combat. Perhaps the one meaningful distinction at present is the question of range. A bomber is generally a long-range aircraft capable of striking targets deep within enemy territory, whereas fighter bombers and attack aircraft are limited to theater missions in and around the immediate area of battlefield combat. Even that distinction is muddied by the availability of aerial refueling, which greatly increases the potential radius of combat operations. The US, Russia, and the People's Republic of China operate strategic bombers. The B-52 Stratofortress airframe is over 60 years old, and are scheduled to remain in service for another 30 years, which would keep the airframe in service for nearly 90 years, an unprecedented length of service for any aircraft. Plans for successors to the current strategic bomber force remain only paper projects, and political and funding pressures suggest that they are likely to remain paper-bound for the foreseeable future. B-52H Stratofortress, B-1B Lancer, B-2A Spirit. CA Euro cargo transport. The Air Force can provide rapid global mobility, which lies at the heart of U.S. strategy in this environment. Euro without the capability to project forces, there is no conventional deterrent. As U.S. forces stationed overseas continue to decline, global interests remain, making the unique mobility capabilities of the USAF even more in demand. Air mobility is a national asset of growing importance for responding to emergencies and protecting American interests around the globe. Cargo and transport aircraft are typically used to deliver troops, weapons and other military equipment by a variety of methods to any area of military operations around the world, usually outside of the commercial flight routes in uncontrolled airspace. The workhorses of the USAF Air Mobility Command are the C-130 Hercules, C-17 Globemaster III, and C-5 Galaxy. These aircraft are largely defined in terms of their range capability as strategic airlift, strategic tactical, and tactical airlift to reflect the needs of the land forces they most often support. The COV-22 is used by the Air Force for the U.S. Special Operations Command. It conducts long-range, special operations missions, and is equipped with extra fuel tanks and terrain-following radar. C-5ACM Galaxy, C-12CF Huron, C-17A Globemaster III, C-27J Spartan, C-41A Aviocar, C-130EH Hercules, C-130J Super Hercules COV-22B Osprey. EA Euro Special Electronic Missions. The purpose of electronic warfare is to deny the opponent an advantage in the EMS and ensure friendly, unimpeded access to the M-spectrum portion of the information environment. Electronic warfare aircraft are used to keep airspaces friendly, and send critical information to anyone who needs it. They are often called the eye in the sky. EC 130 hours per dual compass call commando solo, E3 bytes per carat sentry, E4B, E8CJSTARS, E9A, E11A. FA Eurofighter. The fighter aircraft of the USAF are small, fast, and maneuverable military aircraft primarily used for air-to-air combat. Many of these fighters have secondary ground attack capabilities, and some are dual-rolled as fighter-bombers. The term fighter is also sometimes used colloquially for dedicated ground attack aircraft. Other missions include interception of bombers and other fighters, reconnaissance, and patrol. The USAF has 2,025 fighters in service as of September 2012. F-15C and D Eagle, F-15E Strike Eagle, F-16C and D Fighting Falcon Block 25,324,252 50 plus, F-22A Raptor, F-35A Lightning II. HA Euro Search and Rescue. These aircraft are used for search and rescue and combat search and rescue on land or sea. HC-130PN Hercules, HH-60G MH-60G Pave Hawk. KA Euro Tanker. The USAF's aerial refueling aircraft are derivatives of civilian jets. The USAF aircraft are equipped primarily for providing the fuel via a tail-mounted refueling boom, and can be equipped with probe and drogue refueling systems. Air-to-air refueling is extensively used in large-scale operations and also used in normal operations. Fighters, bombers, and cargo aircraft rely heavily on the lesser-known tanker aircraft. This makes these aircraft an essential part of the Air Force's global mobility and the U.S. force projection. KC-10A Extender, KC-135ET Stratotanker. MA Euro Multi-Mission. Specialized multi-mission aircraft provide support for global special operations missions. These aircraft conduct infiltration, exfiltration, resupply, and refueling for SOF teams from improvised or otherwise short runways. MC-130HWJ Combat Talon II Combat Shadow Combat Spear Commando II, MC-12 West Liberty, QA Euro Multi-Mission Remote Piloted Aircraft. Initial generations of RPAs were primarily surveillance aircraft, but some were fitted with weaponry. An armed RPA is known as an unmanned combat air vehicle. MQ-1 Predator, MQ-9 Reaper. OA Euro Observation, These aircraft are modified to observe and report tactical information concerning composition and disposition of forces. OC-135B Open Skies. RA Euro Reconnaissance. The reconnaissance aircraft of the USAF are used for monitoring enemy activity, originally carrying no armament. Note: although the U-2 is designated as a utility aircraft, it is indeed a reconnaissance platform. RC-26B, RC-135SVW Cobra Ball Combat Sent Rivet Joint U-2 Rankines per second Dragon Lady, QA Euro Reconnaissance Remote Piloted Aircraft. Several unmanned remotely controlled reconnaissance aircraft have been developed and deployed. Recently, the RPAs have been seen to offer the possibility of cheaper, more capable fighting machines that can be used without risk to air crews. RQ-4A Global Hawk, RQ-11 Raven, RQ-170 Sentinel. TA Euro Trainer. The Air Force's trainer aircraft are used to train pilots, navigators, and other aircrew in their duties. T-1A Jayhawk, T-6A Texan II-A, T-38A Sea Talon, Diamond T-52A, GA Euro trainer gliders. Several gliders have been employed by the USAF. Primarily used for flying training at the Air Force Academy. TG-10BD, TG-15A, TG-15B. UA Euro Utility. Utility aircraft are used basically for what they are needed for at the time. For example, a Huey may be used to transport personnel around a large base or launch site, while it can also be used for evacuation. These aircraft are all-around use aircraft. U-28A, UH-1N Iroquois, UV-18 Ares per byte Twin Otter. VA Euro VIP Staff Transport. These aircraft are used for the transportation of very important persons. Notable people include the President, Vice President, Cabinet Secretaries, government officials, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and other key personnel. VC-9C, VC-25A, C-20AC Gulfstream 3, C-20 grams per hour Gulfstream 4, C-21A Learjet, C-32 Ares per byte, C-37 Ares per byte Gulfstream V, C-38A Courier, C-40 bytes per carat. WA Euro Weather Reconnaissance. These aircraft are used to study meteorological events such as hurricanes and typhoons. WC-130J Super Hercules, WC-135 carats per watt Constant Phoenix. Undesignated foreign aircraft used by Special Operations Squadrons, CN 235 to 100 miles-8. Other, LGM-30G Minuteman III Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, Culture. Mark Welsh has called the USAF a service that prides itself on being fueled by innovations, was born of technology and must stay ahead of the technological curve to be successful, but Welsh only allows travel to scientific conferences by special dispensation. The culture of the United States Air Force is primarily driven by pilots, and so the pilots of various aircraft types have driven its priorities over the years. At first there was a focus on bombers, followed by a focus on fighters. In response to the 2007 United States Air Force nuclear weapons incident, Secretary of Defense Robert Gates accepted in June 2009 the resignations of Secretary of the Air Force Michael Wynne and the Chief of Staff of the Air Force General T. Michael Mosley. Mosley's successor, General Norton A. Schwartz, was the first officer appointed to that position who did not have a background as a fighter or bomber pilot. The Washington Post reported in 2010 that General Schwartz began to dismantle the rigid class system of the USAF. In 2014 News SOAF Deborah Lee James admitted that there remained a systemic problem in the USAF's management of the nuclear mission. Daniel L. Magruder, Jr. defines USAF culture as a combination of the rigorous application of advanced technology, individualism and progressive air power theory. Major General Charles J. Dunlap, Jr. adds that Air Force culture includes an egalitarianism bred from officers as warriors who work with small groups of enlisted airmen either as the service crew or onboard crew of their aircraft. Cultural and career issues in the U.S. Air Force have been cited as reasons for a shortfall in needed drone operators. In spite of an urgent need for drones to provide round-the-clock coverage for American troops during the Iraq War, the USAF did not establish a new career field for piloting them until the last year of that war, and in 2014 changed its RPA training syllabus again, in the face of large aircraft losses in training, and in response to a GAO report critical of handling of drone programs. The roof stomp is a cultural tradition practiced by Air Force members to welcome a new commanding officer or commemorate another event, such as a retirement. Slogans and creeds. The United States Air Force has had numerous recruiting slogans, including "No one comes close" and "You know ab alto." For many years, the U.S. Air Force used "Aim High" as its recruiting slogan. More recently, they have used "Cross into the Blue," "We've been waiting for you," and "Do something amazing," above all, and the newest one, as of October 7, 2010, considered a call and response, "Aim High" followed with a response, "Fly Fight," when each wing, group, or squadron usually has its own slogan. Information and logos can usually be found on the wing, group, or squadron websites. The Air Force core values are, integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. The Airman's Creed is a statement introduced in early 2007 to summarize the culture of the Air Force. To help further knowledge of their mission and functions, the Air Force has also produced videos, such as "Setting the Conditions for Victory," and "How We Fight," to outline the Air Force role in the war on terrorism and how the service succeeds in its domains of air, space, and cyberspace. The Above All campaign continues to support the message of air, space and cyberspace dominance. See also: References. References to U.S. Army predecessors of today's U.S. Air Force are cited under their respective articles. External links: Official USAF site, Official USAF recruiting site, Air Force BlueTube, Official blog, Air Force Live, Other, searchable database of Air Force historical reports, USAF emblems, USAF Communications Troops, Aircraft Investment Plan, Fiscal Years 2011-2040, submitted with the FY 2011 budget, National Commission on the Structure of the Air Force, report to the President and the Congress of the United States.